Yeah, anyway, so back to growing up in the Bay, did you have brothers and sisters? Are you close with the family? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I moved here when I was 6. My brothers were really young at the time. I'm the oldest of 3. My youngest brother had actually just been born when we moved to the Bay. Before that, I lived in Florida and London for a little bit. I bounced around, but yeah, I lived in Kentfield when I first moved to the Bay and lived there pretty much up through high school. When I was in college, my parents moved to Tiburon. When I came back to take the job at 2K, I moved in with them at first in Tiburon coming out of college, and then I got my own place in a couple miles from them. So I see them every day. We're actually I'm doing a house project, a house renovation at my house, which they're helping me with. So it would not surprise me if during this broadcast they knock on my door and give me some updates. But yeah, really close with the family. We all followed the same kind of footsteps in terms of Basage Kent and then Redwood. Was the first Indian person to go through the system, so that was interesting, kind of trailblazing for my brothers. But yeah,
You were a big Niner fan growing up, I read.
yeah. I don't know if you guys remember this, but the sporting green used to be all black and white. It might still be black and white. I haven't opened up a sporting green in a long time, but on Mondays they would actually like have 2 color pages, which would have pictures from the game from the day before, or Tuesday if it was Monday Night Football. And I would take those pictures, like a lot of them, and put them up on my wall. I wish I had pictures of this because, like, I had 7 years worth of like newspaper clippings up on my wall. It was pretty cool. And I mean, a huge Niners fan. They used to play like the police department in basketball games, so like I went and watched like Merton Hanks play and like a bunch of the JJ Stokes, like a bunch of the OG Niners. So I've been a Niners fan my whole life. I've been a Giants fan my whole life. Warriors, actually, I was not a fan. They were so bad when I was a kid, and I really actually kind of attached myself to people that I really enjoyed watching as solo people. I think that's what's great about the NBA. So Jordan was my guy, and then Shaquille O'Neal, and then Kevin Durant since then. So wherever those guys go, it's kind of like where I've attached my basketball allegiance. But Niners and Giants all the way.
Yeah, we had Keena Turner on the show.
Oh yeah, Keena's
Keena.
friends with my friend Samantha, who actually works for the Giants now.
Ronnie, when did you start gaming? Have you always been a big gamer as a kid, or when did that come into the picture?
Yeah, I mean, I've gamed pretty much since I can remember. I used to play NBA Jam, and even before that, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird on NES, but NBA Jam on SNES, and that was really probably the start of definitely my basketball video game fandom, but pretty much my sports video game fandom. And I bet you I could play competitively on Nintendo 64. Like that was my system. Obviously, wore that out in high school and college. But I mean, if it was to lead to my career, of the two things, gaming versus sports was what actually got me to what I'm doing now. I was always just the biggest sports fan. I remember actually, you guys might remember this too. I would take the 24 bus.
The 24 to Visadero.
Yeah, it would drop off somewhere on Market. I forget where we change over, and then I take the bus, the second bus from there to Candlestick to watch Giants games. I would do that with this guy that like I think he's been a season ticket holder for 35 years. He befriended my parents, and he would take me to games because they were so busy working. I go to like 35, 40 Giants games a year. By the way, if the dog barks, there's a lot going on in my house. That's what
No worries.
all good. All good.
Sorry.
No, it's it.
People from my stream are like used to any of my content has her in it. Hey, cut it out.
You need that bacon bag right there.
Yeah. No, there's just people around my house, and she's just not used to it.
Did you play? Go ahead.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, other than Jordan, or actually Jordan wasn't on there, so it would have been like Pippen and Horace Grant. Who was your tournament NBA jam duo? Like, who is your go-to?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually played with Scott Stiles and Nick Anderson. I played for some reason. I played with the Magic. I love their jerseys, but like me and my best friend Trey, who I grew up with here in the Bay Area, we would play NBA Jam. I remember there was one night we played it like 42 times up until 4 in the morning, and like we were trying to shut out a team. So the closest we got was 226 to 4. We got to 226 to 4. That was the best game we had that night. But
I always loved that game because the baseline three was such a weird depth. Like, it was almost like it didn't match up. You know, like you couldn't tell if they were shooting or dunking from baseline three. Such a weird dynamic with
that game was so much fun, ahead of its time for sure.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah. I didn't really play more basketball games, video games, until I started playing like live in the early 2000s, and then quickly transitioned to 2K5. Well, I guess the first 2K I played was 2K3, but I was top 10 leaderboards in 2K5 a couple years before I started at 2K.
When did it come to mind, like, hey, this is something that I want to do and make money against it? You know, when did that light bulb go off in your head?
Well, I think it first started with like, look, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I jumped around in my career a lot, starting from the end of high school to even several years after college. You know, I went to school for computer science, which I thought was like web design, and rude awakening on that one. It was not. And I bounced around a lot. I ended up graduating with a degree in economics, management science, actually. But then I went to law school for 10 fabled weeks. Hated that so much. So I was like, you know what? I'll try to work for a law firm and see if I like it. At the same time, I went to work for a women's basketball team. These were both in San Diego.
Is this UC San Diego?
I went to UC San Diego, and then right after I stayed there because I was dating a girl at the time, and I went to New York for 10 weeks to go to law school at Columbia, and then I quit, and I didn't quit at the time, but I took a postponement, and
you phased out.
I phased out, and went back to San Diego. Went to work for a law firm, and then also went to work for this women's basketball league, which is funny because Becky Hammond, who's in the news the last couple of days, was part of that league, which is kind of ironic.
What was it about working in law and doing that grind that pushed you away? You know, is it
the thing is, it's not. Yeah, most people jump to like, oh, law must be really difficult because of the hours. I didn't mind the hours. I do more than those hours a lot. Even, you know, the 80-hour weeks, like I do that all the time. It was, I think I would have made a great partner because I would have got to litigate and really been in front of things. I think all the research stuff and like all the nuance, it like just didn't have any soul or passion in it. And ultimately my heart was always with sports. So unless I was like, I wanted to go to law school to be a sports agent. I wanted to be Jerry Maguire, and thank God I didn't do that, because that's a tough career. I obviously deal with sports agents all the time now.
Finally, I can make some Jerry Maguire references. Mike always gets mad at me because we have sometimes younger people on the show. And
we had Aaron Gordon on the show. We had Aaron Gordon on the show, and he asked a question about Jerry Maguire, and Aaron Gordon was like, no idea what he was talking about.
No idea who that is.
Ronnie, that's not our job for them to get educated on Jerry Maguire, because they have to watch Jerry Maguire. They're doing themselves a disservice, not me.
Great piece of film.
Amazing.
Shame on you, Aaron.
Yeah.
So as you were saying, you were just talking about wanting to do the passion thing. You mentioned that you were coaching. How did you get into that? And did you find your passion for sports and being involved?
I wasn't coaching, actually. I was running entertainment operations for this women's basketball league. And then I went to work for a minor league baseball team that had Bay Area legend Jose Canseco on the team. Ricky Henderson the year before, San Diego Surf Dogs. I actually knew Jose as a kid, and I was kind of orchestrated the signing of that thing. I don't know if you guys have heard this story, so you can stop me if you have.
No,
No.
run it.
So we signed Jose to get publicity. Obviously, you guys know minor league sports, you got to pull out all the stops. We used to have game day promotions where we'd have a dental sponsorship, and like we'd clean the bases with a gigantic toothbrush. I mean, it was more about what was happening off the field than what was happening on. But Jose, we signed him, and then he found out that he had we had a team in Long Beach, and he wanted to get traded there like immediately after playing one game with us. He wanted to get traded, and that kind of like stuck to me a little bit. I was like, I worked so hard to like orchestrate and help make that happen. Another person from that league, by the way, is the president of the Oakland A's, was the GM of that league, Dave Cavill, which is, it's just funny how all of this stuff kind of comes full circle with the Bay Area. But fast forward, he was coming back to face our San Diego team, and we put little stickers of his face on juice boxes, because this was right in the heart of the whole juiced book thing where he was outing everybody for steroids. And that got picked up by ESPN. It got picked up. It was like everywhere for a couple weeks. And that was like kind of my first breakthrough, like grassroots marketing kind of campaign that, got a lot of legs, and I think was kind of social media before social media was social media.
Dude, was the toothbrush thing your idea? I love that, dude. That's like that's a genius smart. Yeah, using it to scrub the bases.
Yeah. Well, it was like just our team like thinking, okay, how do we kind of get together and make some publicity. We didn't think it was going to be that big, but it ended up being like pretty crazy if people were talking about it. Good timing though, like opportunity meets kind of creativity, if you say.
So obviously you have, a lot of skill for marketing in all kinds of different areas. Were you like that as a kid, like marketing stuff? Were you like a pitch, like as a kid pitching stuff, or did that kind of come just later on?
I was pretty introverted, honestly. I always tell this story. It's really weird. Like, I was really introverted as a kid. I mean, I played sports and whatever, so that made me a little bit more out there. But like, I didn't party. I didn't really do anything. I would come home, play video games, play sports. Like, I was a really good kid. Right after, like, I was kind of burnt out during college. So there was this one winter. I don't remember what year it was. I think it was third year, junior year, where like I came back for summer and I worked at Hollywood Video, which, again, dating ourselves. Like, people are like, what the hell's a Hollywood Video?
I remember the song.
Yeah, exactly. But what was great about that experience was that working in retail, I really recommend for anyone, because you really talk to the consumer. You really get to like have to be a little bit extroverted almost to like help people. And so I think that experience was really like kind of groundbreaking and interesting for me, which sounds so crazy because it's just some random retail job. But it allowed me to like start being like, oh, look, I really enjoy selling, and like selling an idea or selling a movie on people, something I knew a lot about. I watched so many movies as a kid. I think that's really important. All that other stuff, like with finding out whether you can make money and all that, start with your passion, I would say, first, and then the like what that niche is will create itself, and then you can monetize that later on. I always tell that same story about, you gotta like be happy about what you're doing before you can worry about making money, because it's really hard to, not impossible, but really hard to if you're not passionate about it.
You're kind of, in the video store, probably a common scenario is you got to sell well when the hot video is out, right? Everyone comes in to rent Terminator 2. Yeah. They're excited. There's no boxes behind
I hate myself.
Yeah. You got no boxes behind the screen. They know it. We know it. And then you got to be like, look, this other flick is out right now, and this is off the charts, and kind of sell like that. It's a real thing, because I remember going to the video store and you knew the best movie was going to be out.
Yeah.
and you're hoping like, hey, maybe someone will return in the next 20 minutes. Not going to happen, and you got to kind of. So that's kind of cool that you know, started on that scale, just kind of like
Understand,
developing,
yeah,
yeah,
understanding
marketing
your
and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, the video game business should be like that too, right? Like there was a day where like pre-ordering video games like was important because there weren't that many made. So like if you didn't buy it on day one, just like if you didn't buy a movie or an album on day one, it was gone. Now, obviously, with digital distribution, like that's not a thing. But I think it even kind of trained me to like really create that certain sense of urgency, which really impacted like the movie business and the video game business. When I first started in the video game business, were very, very similar. You know, we were all about the game comes out back then. It was in October. Um, we just push that day, push that day, push that day. All your marketing, you know, went towards highlighting that day. All your commercials went to highlighting that day. Now our business has changed drastically, and all the entire video game industry has changed because now it's, you know, about expansion packs and all the cool content drops, of course, that 2K and others do. It's just changing that business model. And I think what prepared me even early in my education was um, learning that I would have to continue to educate myself, even when, like, you know, you could be a leading figure in an industry like social media or whatever. You know, you have to continue to innovate and think about the business. So
what were some of the ways that you went about educating yourself?
well, so, I mean, at first, social was tough because, like, when I first started at 2K, Twitter was a year old. Facebook, you needed a high school or college ID. There was no Instagram, no Snapchat, no TikTok. You know, like, so it was continually being like, you got to try these products and continue to talk to people about it and see what works, test and learn, all of that stuff. That's just something that's been very like continuous in my career. It was like you got to put it in front of the fans and let them tell you about it. You know, my first job at 2K was to be community manager, run our forums, get feedback from our fans. I think that's another great thing to be in business on at first, because you learn a lot about your consumer and your product is based on your consumer. So like I thought that that is a great training for people, and I'm so like happy that that's how it started with me, because I got to learn and kind of think about how you could pivot off of what your consumer was asking for,
Yeah.
which 2K does such an exceptional job. All of our entire team really pivots off of what our fan tells us and builds, you know, the business accordingly.
Yeah, it's that the community input is so huge. I do some political stuff through like the fire union that I'm involved in, and you know, a new phenomenon in political stuff is the text, right? You see them all the time, like vote for this person or do this,
Mm-hmm.
and usually you think like, all right, there's just someone sitting on a desk, but I always found it very valuable to look into those and directly engage, because when you come back to the marketing table, you have almost like a working survey in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, like, all right, I can tell you, you know, 70% of the people that I've been engaging with don't like what we're talking about right here, or they have an issue. So the value of that is unreal. Do you still keep in touch with that a lot with, you
Oh
know,
yeah, I mean, I think my entire social media is built off of engaging with the consumer. There's a lot of expectation with our consumer because it's been built on years of like innovation and success. You know, our game uh, has really just grown so like metamorphically, if that's a word.
it is now.
And a lot of it is based on, you know, fan feedback, but with that comes great expectations, right? So like we continually, I'm always engaging with the fans on a variety of social media. The thing is, I never really thought that like the handles themselves, like my following would be so large,
It's huge.
where like I'm so outnumbered. But you know, I do the best that I can, and luckily I work on a great product with a bunch of really smart people that make it a lot easier. That's for sure.
You know, you mentioned that you were extroverted when you were younger.
Intro.
Intro.
Oh, excuse me, intro. Going from being a very introverted person to being on social media, I feel like is like a 0 to 100. You're having
Mhm.
conversations, you're seeing what everyone's saying all the time. Is that can that be stressful at times? And how do you find ways to kind of separate yourself from social media and everything that's happening on that aspect? We had Bob Myers on, and
Yeah.
he mentioned that he doesn't even have social media.
Yeah. The honest truth is I wouldn't have the social media if it wasn't so critical to my job. I really would. I don't know why a normal person really does, because there's a lot of benefit to social media, but it's very hard to disengage and like do what you have to do. So I totally understand where Bob's coming from. For me, like my life is so intertwined with that like it's maybe I've just kind of gotten used to it. But it was definitely a challenge at first. Like a lot of people, I think, see on social media like somebody that's really loud and out there. But like when you meet me in person, it's very friendly and like boisterous and like, and then that's surprising to fans who engage with me on social media. At the end of the day, like I'm, gonna be myself, and on social, I'm telling a story about what my role is at 2K alongside my daily life, and I try to humanize it as much as possible. Like my dog's very involved in my social. Like there's a lot of different things, but you also have to be careful with that too. Like I've never posted about my family really on social. I've never really posted about any girls I've dated. It's just one of those things where like you have to definitely be authentic, but you also like have to be very like selective about what you're thinking about, which and still be very genuine. And I try to walk that line the best I can. And I thankfully 2K gives me a lot of latitude to do that, because I think that's really rare.
I was gonna ask, so you started off in the community, side of things. How did you start working your way and becoming more integrated with the game of NBA 2K, including, everything from player ratings to design, etc.?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Well, I think that there became an opportunity with the growth of social media. The NBA has done a tremendous job of really, kind of deciding to, instead of focusing on Lakers and Warriors and like all these franchises, they've really started thinking about the stories behind their players. You know more about Steph Curry and LeBron James than you ever knew about Michael Jordan until The Last Dance. And the players of yesteryear. I think that really changed around the time that I joined 2K. So like that grew at the same time. Social media exploded at the same time. The NBA in general exploded at the same time. Gaming exploded at the same time. So like all of those things were created this perfect storm that like allowed for this thing
Catapult.
that exists. I also think that 2K and myself in part were very like forward thinking in terms of influence marketing, and knowing that like people were going to be swayed by personalities as opposed to whatever a brand was telling you. And that was, I think, really smart, because that's what the NBA was doing. Like you believe, what the storytelling behind the Steph Curry, because of he's letting you in so many ways that other people don't. I just think that's something that people connect with, that feels more authentic. And I was kind of a circumstance of that. um but then you have to work hard, you have to have opportunities, you have to make your opportunities. And the business is, I mentioned, the business has changed so much. We used to be so much like the movie business, but like then it became about sustain and like all the things that we have after the game launches, and it being like really 365. Well, the NBA has become still 365 too. Like think about when you rest in the NBA now. Like there might be a couple week doldrum non-COVID like right about now after free agency, but not I mean even then not really. Like the NBA has done a great job of that, and we've had to kind of follow suit, which has really transitioned my role and created a lot more opportunities to grow and be a player. It's just like working for any other brand. You know, you have to evolve with the business, or the business will leave you behind.
You know, you mentioned making opportunities and doing things that kind of are coming from a self-made place of mind. Can you look back at any moments, you know, in your years coming up through 2K where like you went out and maybe pitched something or had a discussion with someone that gave you that aha moment, you know, where people saw you as something different?
Um, there are probably a few, you know, like when we first started focusing on content. I remember NBA 2K11 when we put Michael Jordan on the cover, and all of a sudden we had become this kind of cultural icon. We had celebrities and NBA players organically showing up at our launch events, and our need to tell that story, you know, storytelling around this culture shift. That was like, you know, 2K put a microphone in my hand and was like, okay, you seem like the person to go get content. Go, you know, go talk to these guys, talk about that story. There were so many moments like that over the course of time. Um, you know, but again, it came from a great support structure and 2K's belief that this was an innovative way to market. And every year there was a transition of how we wanted to market, and you know, leverage influencer marketing and social media. And you know, I was definitely a part of that.
Hey, Ronnie, like you mentioned keeping up with the business, and obviously from someone who's big on marketing, you know, we know from the games we played when we were a kid how much games have evolved, and it seems as they evolve and they open up more opportunities to engage the user. I mean, you know, you have games now where you can create yourself as this college recruit. You know, you're going through getting tweets of like, hey, you know, you changed, man. You're in the league now, to getting a deal, and people play out these fantasies, and then there's some people that just play the game to just play with the players. But you know, are you in pretty close like step with the game developers, so that as trends kind of, as you're looking at next year's game or the years after, you're saying, wow, this aspect of the game now I can go chase down X, Y, and Z, because this is going to open a whole new world on how our users play.
Yeah, you mentioned the social media feature. I was involved in that feature, and like identifying the NBA conversation people and getting in contact with them and getting them involved. You know, the transition that's happened from like the way the game used to be played, where you know I played the Celtics, you played the Lakers, to then in 2K10, you know, my third year at 2K, we had created this mode called My Career where you play as yourself. And then the innovation that happened every single year to upgrade that experience, you know, and 2K15, you could take your mobile phone and put your face in the game, right? It was not only, you weren't even just creating a My Player now, you were creating yourself.
Yeah.
And then all the like open world stuff where you could go pick out your clothes
Press
and
conferences.
press conferences. It was the whole storyline of and getting endorsements. It was this whole storyline of a basketball player, because we wanted to immerse and really create some mind share that you were totally investing yourself into the game, literally, because you were playing as yourself. And that shift was critical. And those moments about making that authentic, you know, being in the cultural space of basketball, you know, I was able to help you know, guide that from a kind of cultural perspective, make intros, all that stuff, because you know, we were getting more connected to culture, and I was kind of helping guide some of that stuff. So that those kind of worked hand in hand, and that's why the game is like just such a phenomenon, and means so much culturally. But I also say this in interviews all the time. I really feel like we're just scratching the surface, because like basketball, because it's a 5-person sport and you really care, and those 5 people affect what's on the floor so much, and you really care about their stories off the court, that we're just scratching the surface. I mean, forget technology. Technology is going to create a ton of opportunities as well, but I still think we have so many ways that we can grow the game on a cultural level. In the last couple of years, we've leaned into music, we've leaned into fashion, we've leaned into art. You saw the great covers that we released for 2K22. That's done by the guy that was critical to the BLM movement with Time Magazine last year, Charlie Palmer. Like, these are all like moments where 2K is having a stand about what's happening in the real world. Um, that was all key, and it's hand in hand. It's dynamic, working with the development team. Like, we're thinking about this stuff daily, not yearly anymore. And it's amazing. Like, it's so incredible that a lot of people that are at 2K have been there since I began, and they work so hard, they care so much, and somehow we find a way to take it to a whole nother level year after year. That's not easy to do. You would think, being the leader, just like continue to innovate, but no game that comes out every year innovates as much as 2K does.
Do you guys get a lot of feedback from the players as far as wish list stuff, whether it's like, hey, you guys should do this in 2K this year,
too much feedback.
Or I wish the league would let us do this, but like I want to play out something that I even can't do in the league in NBA, whether it's just a
for sure. Some of it obviously, like, we can't, because it's, we're still a basketball game, and we still work with the NBA.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can use your imagination and think about things that we can't do.
Just play Grand Theft Auto and you can live that out.
Hey, I want to be able to drive out of the stadium and then
yeah. It can't be that. Not to mention that the game started on basketball. It needs to always be basketball first. But I will say that the community is very involved and innovate, helps us stay passionate and to continue to pursue, the best of class. A lot of times the feedback that we get is things that we had to like pivot from for a variety of reasons to continue to go down this multi-year vision where they just want it back. It's very rare that somebody will be like, oh, you guys haven't thought about this, and you should do this. It's more like, oh, you had this in this game like 8 years ago, bring this back. We really want to innovate and like give you a brand new, bigger experience every year. So that's what we're focused on. So every year, I think the reason that our marketing works is because we usually release a few things that people are like, whoa, where the hell did that come from? And I think that things like the city, the neighborhood blew people away. I think scanning blew people away. I think the park itself, like where you can play as yourself with 100 other people and see NBA players or musicians like in the world in your same park, you get to play them. Like, I think that really blew people away. And yeah, I imagine that we're just going to continue to surprise people every single year with the innovation, because we have a multi-year kind of strategy and vision about what we're trying to do.
You brought up the cover. It's my favorite cover you guys have ever done, and I think it's so unique. I really like the inclusion of a WNBA player and the legends. What goes into kind of choosing who's on the cover? Is it based on like how good a player had that, or how good a year that player had, or is it kind of just more of like a company-wide decision that's made?
It's a little bit of everything. Ultimately, like, I'd say that the first thing is that they have to want to work with us, like our game, have played our game. That's usually the case with all the NBA players. That's usually not a concern, but like guys that really play it it's important because it helps us market it down the road, because then they can be involved in competitive stuff and whatnot. But then the other thing is like really where we kind of set the campaign for what we're trying to do months in advance. And who's the person that's going to help us guide and push that? And usually we go for somebody that's like on the rise as opposed to the decline. We want to set the tone. And there was a stretch, I don't remember the exact years, but I believe it was like 2K9 to 2K like 16, where every cover athlete that we had won a championship in like the following like 18 months. but had never won one before. It was like it's like something crazy like that. Um,
There's
and
one with the Madden game too, where if you're on the cover, you get injured.
Yeah,
That's
I guess it's the reverse curse. But
right.
there was also a stretch and a pretty long one where whoever was on our cover was getting traded and like usually on the cover, which was fun for us from a production standpoint. But you know, like we want to kind of be the tone setter on who's gonna be the next standard bearer of the league, and that's why I think this year, especially Luca, like I mean, he's obviously doing incredible things, done incredible things, but he's just scratching the surface himself. Like he is definitely the future of the league, and to get to work with him, I've actually talked to him for years. He's always asked me for VC and stuff. Like um, he plays the game a lot, so it's gonna be fun to work with him, and it has been already. Like he came and did mocap. I'm sure you guys saw the movie, the video a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Very involved in the development process.
One thing that you know is fascinating is this obsession in the ratings. Obviously, you know, that's like this huge, you know, are you really getting calls from agents or something being like, dude,
No, forget agents. I'm getting calls from the
from players
players.
themselves just being like,
Oh
bro,
yeah.
you know, a 94 in dunks, like I should easily be a 98. There's no way he has better dunks than me. Have you seen me? Like, is it to that level?
To say the least. Yeah, I mean it's gotten a lot more aggressive sometimes, which is so funny because it's a dynamic thing that they really are under control of more than I'm under control of.
Yeah.
But I will say I love the conversation, and usually it's actually about, it's not even about the number. I've found it's really about where that number stacks up against the people they think they're better than. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I remember a couple years ago we had the second year guys, the Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum. Who was the third year? Was it Ben? The those were like the best second year players in that class, and we put
Mm-hmm.
them all at 87, and they were all so mad for different reasons. Um, and so you know, like I think it's great. I think it's created this conversation. We're part of that off-season ecosystem where everybody's mad about their ratings, and nobody's ever complained that their ratings too high, which that'd be a nice change. But I think for that to matter so much, I mean, some of these guys like worry about their ratings more than they worry about all NBA, or which is just amazing to me, you know, for a video game to be that on their forefront, the forefront of their mind, that it's constantly consuming them.
Ronnie, where do you see AI going? Because a lot of people, oftentimes there's technologies that bleed over outside of video games, but they forget that video games house, you know, some of the foundations of like, you know, the concept of like, how does Draymond act when he gets in foul trouble, or the, you know what I mean? And having that, you know, where do you see video games playing a role? Do you see it being kind of like
Well,
staying
there's a lot
pretty?
of intangible ratings that have to do. I hope I'm answering your question appropriately, but it's a lot of intangible ratings that have to do with like what's happening, like not so much about their shooting ratings, but like you just mentioned the Draymond example. Like we definitely have a point of view in the mental parts of the game. If you're asking me about technology, you know, like I mentioned, we're scratching the surface. There's It's gonna be interesting when we get to VR and AR and all this other stuff. I think it's still early days for that, but like basketball is so athletic and kind of beautiful in that way that like I think that there is some cool stuff that will come about when we get there. But we're just gonna continue to like try to lead the way in all of that technology things, you know, test and learn, take risks where we can, and have fun with this, you know, amazing franchise.
You just mentioned the VR thing. Have you seen the movie Ready Player One? Do you see some? I mean, obviously that's very advanced, but do you see something like that happening in
You
the
know what
future?
Demolition Man is?
Oh yeah.
I bet you Don does.
Oh yeah, Demolition Man is ahead of its time because that's where we're headed into two worlds. One of them is the above ground, which I'm not going to get into politics like that, but I mean the Demolition Man. We talked about that early, even before Elon mentioned it. But it was, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, okay, you know. And it's so funny how pop culture, you know, the whole art imitates life,
Yep.
it imitates art, but these ideas come from somewhere, right? Like no one supposedly has ever seen an alien yet. The visual in the movies of aliens are all pretty similar. It's like a big head with the eye, right? Like, and so
You
it's
thought about this
interesting.
a lot, I could tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just
Sorry,
saw
I didn't
the
mean to interrupt the question, but
No.
that's what I always think of when I first think of that like takeover simulation. So sorry, continue.
no. I was just gonna say, like, is that, do you see that happening anytime soon? And kind of what are your thoughts on
I don't think the
VR?
technology personally, and I'm just speaking completely personally here. I'm not speaking for the company on this one. I don't think the technology is there yet, but I know that there are tremendous efforts to get there at some point. So I would assume that eventually it will, but I mean, it's just the technology is not that great yet, but definitely built, definitely built for sports. So when that time comes, I think it'll be pretty exciting.
As we look to the future, before we get into this lightning round with you, we do a lightning round with all of our guests where we ask
Okay.
base specific questions. But my last question for you is, what's on the horizon for 2K, and is there any secret input? Maybe you can give us some breakthrough information so that we can blow this episode up coming down the pipeline.
Well, NBA 2K22 obviously comes out September 10th. We announced the cover athletes. I think it's going to make our fans extremely happy. We announced some features this past Tuesday that the fans are pretty excited about. Like matchmaking in the neighborhood, and the kind of the offensive defensive metagame, like being a little bit more balanced. People are really excited about that. I think it's going to be a really fun year, and I'm just like I said, so excited to represent this company that has so many talented people working on one of the most exciting franchises in the gaming space. So yeah, I mean, it's all, my mind's all on 22 right now. Obviously, we're always thinking about future 2Ks and where things can go, but yeah, we're just what 6-7 weeks away from 22's launch, so I'm
Can't
really
wait to
excited about
can't
that.
wait to play it. I'll be buying it in the PS5 store. I don't
Awesome.
own any disc, but I'll definitely be buying it when it comes out. So, yeah, we got this lightning round. Let me grab this belt.
Okay.
Yeah. Some great stuff. You know what's so funny is you must have hit on, and I'll wait, Mike. He must have hit on at least like 5 to 10 questions from the former lightning rounds. I mean, I feel like we've had questions on Jerry Maguire. Um, we had questions on Ricky Henderson and Dave Henderson.
Oh, he mentioned another player who was in the E40 song. Merton Hanks. Did you mention Merton
Yeah, he
Hanks?
mentioned Merton Hanks. I mean, I mean, yeah, you've probably hit
Who's your
on
guys'
like,
favorite? Who's your favorite Bay Area athlete of all time?
Juan Toscano Anderson. That's my guy. He's like one of my best friends, so I'm gonna say him. But my other favorite Bay Area athlete, probably of all time, uh, I'm gonna go with Stephen Clay, man.
Okay.
yeah, that's up there for sure. I mean, growing up, for me, I was a huge A's fan, so like the Bash brothers were huge,
Yeah.
right? Ricky Henderson was huge.
No.
That's tough. I mean, Montana and the Niners. How do you even skip that?
Yeah.
Um, there's been
My
so
my
many.
number one guy was Jerry Rice.
Yeah, Jay
Oh
Rice.
yeah, Jerry Rice, dude.
Have you tried his
Just
goat fuel?
No, I haven't. You know what's funny? He follows me on Twitter, and I hit him up one time, and he didn't respond. I was bummed because usually
Happens to
when I
me
hit
all
somebody,
the
they
time.
respond. What's that?
I said happen. I
I'm sure
messaged.
I'll run into him one day, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, we do this lightning round where we ask questions. Who's the last winner, Dom? Do you know?
the last winner was Chuck's Flavor Train one. I think right because he was
Yeah.
right. Yeah, he's the current belt
Wow,
holder.
what a guy to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know you have you heard of him?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, he's great, man. We had him on the show. It was a good episode. He's got so much energy and good vibes. So
Yeah.
shout out to Chuck.
So I'm
So
gonna
how do I win?
so I'm gonna tweak some things around because there's been so much content here. And I'm going to go dynamic on this. We make it incredibly hard. And the way you win is we have 4 questions. You start, we have the easy round, right? Which we'll call like,
What is
Pink,
this Bay Area trivia? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
yeah, Bay Area
Okay.
trivia. And so we'll have 4 rounds. We start easy, and then the 4th round is the belt. It gets incredibly hard, so don't be hard on yourself. This is designed to lose. All right, we're trying to keep this very tough.
Got it.
But we'll start with an easy one, okay? So this one's going to be real easy just to get us out of the gate. You mentioned Jose Canseco. Who's the other half of the Bash Brothers?
Mark
from the
McGuire.
Mark
Bro,
McGuire.
how are you gonna
Okay.
ask him that question?
Dude, it's round 1.
That
Don't
is the
worry. The
easiest
other
question.
the other questions are so hard. I'm not worried. Round 1 is like you're roller skating.
That wasn't. I mean, that's not like that easy. That was
Yeah, it's dude.
25 years ago.
There's tons of people. So we're gonna get a lot tougher. Okay. This is a question we've asked in the past. You are in the Marin area, so there was a very famous hip hop artist, actor, tremendous personality that went to Mount Tamalpais for some time and lived in Marin City.
Tupac.
Tupac,
Bingo.
boom. Okay, so that was a little hidden one. Not many people know that Tupac did some time in the
Hey,
Bay.
hey, what AG? Aaron Gordon got the Tupac question wrong from Above the Rim.
Above the rim, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to AG.
So
He actually went to Temescal for a year, which is right next to Redwood, which is why I knew that.
So now we're going to get extremely difficult, and I'm going to
Okay.
take it to your home territory of video games.
Okay. This is probably the one I'm gonna mess up.
Oh yeah, this is very hard. So there was a football game that came out on Sega Genesis in '93. I'm going to play you the song from the video game, and I need you to tell me roughly the name of it. You don't have to get exactly right, but more importantly, who is on the cover. Okay, so I'm gonna play the song. I want you to picture the loading screen on Sega Genesis.
I didn't have a Sega Genesis. I skipped from 64 to Dreamcast.
Yeah, this is tough then. If you didn't have a Genesis, it
93. So 93, I played this hockey game, Malfa 93, which had Patrick Roy on the cover. So 93.
I'll tell you, one of the most notable things about this game, like many of the games, was one of the popular moves is like if you ran up the sideline and found the defense, you could run all the way back to the goal line, cut across, and you could beat the game by going straight
Still
up.
score.
I will say a Bay Area, very famous Bay Area football player was on it, and this was a football game.
Well, 93 would have been Steve Young. No. Oh, Bo Jackson?
No.
I mean, it's the only other people that it could be then was Joe or
It was Joe, and
Okay.
and you want to guess the game?
Joe was on a cover
Yes.
outside of our. Wow.
He's got the phone under there.
Yep. Joe was on he was on here. Let me get this for you right here.
Wow.
NFL Sports Talk Football.
I would have never got that.
It's very tough. I'll tell you what, the next question is so difficult
Okay.
that I'm going to give you a special Bay Area treat because you so encompass all these Bay Area stuff that if you get this right, we will have a conference. And if you make a custom NBA player for the next one coming out for me and Mike, we will give you the belt. I'm just kidding. We'll give you the belt anyways if you get this right. Because we can just create our own player, obviously. There's an alumni from Redwood High.
Yeah.
And she's an actress, and she was on a TV show. She was on a TV show called Beverly Hills 90210, and she had a romantic relationship with Brandon Walsh. I need you to
What
tell
year
me.
was
Yeah, this is
Bro, when he
this? I mean,
asked,
Beverly Hills 90210. Wow.
we were. I mean, because what year you were?
No, yeah, that's not.
It was Wednesday nights.
Before my time.
Yeah, 8 p.m. Channel 2. You know, if you were probably playing game, you were on the game front. I was checking.
I might have been like a shade young for that one.
Yeah, this one's really tough. Her name was Andrea Zuckerman, and she's an alumni from Redwood High School. Her name's Gabrielle Carteris. Very random. I mean,
What year was this?
such a weird ass question, dude.
What year was she in 90210?
No, what year did she graduate Redwood?
and I have to go back to my my deep notes on the
Well,
alums.
it was like 1985. That's
Yeah, I know, but I figured there's not so many alum that like maybe it might have been a talk of the town or
so,
something.
you know the famous Redwood alum that I know, Robin Williams,
Oh, that's right. He
Wow.
did
Pete Carroll,
go.
Yeah, Pete Carroll.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right,
Gavin
dude.
Newsom.
Damn,
They
Gavin.
want to put me on the Wall of Fame next year.
You gonna
So
do it?
there's some hard hitters there for sure.
You gonna do the
Yeah,
Wall
no,
of Fame?
some big names have gone to Redwood,
Yeah.
but
Well,
I did not know. And what Andreas Zuckerman?
yeah, it's
No.
hey, it was I was kind of, you know, like I have to work them around and see where it's going. That one, if I'm going to give you to 4 after 3,
Somebody got those last two, both of them. Wow.
no one's got. We customize the questions for
Oh,
each
got it.
each. Yeah. So hey, it's we'll definitely have you back and think of some questions and stuff like that. And the lightning round is always tough. I mean,
I would have loved to win.
Juan Toscano just lost. I forget which one he lost on last episode, Mike. Which question?
I forget which one he did too, but
Yeah.
oh no, it was a question about Oakland. I
Oh
forget
yeah,
what
it was. We asked about which rap group had famous lyric in the song "Player Haters" about stealing a credit card from Chris Webber. And the answer, it was a rap duo. The answer was the Loonies in the song "Play." You know, the "Why You Want to Play or Hate on Me."
I wouldn't have got that either. So
Yeah, it's tough. Hey, we go. It's tough.
you guys go
And
deep.
We
yeah,
go
but
deep.
the belt's special though. You know, it's but
Thank
we'll
you,
do it.
Ronnie.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
really appreciate you
No
coming
problem,
on the
no
show. This is some, grassroots stuff. So we know you're such a busy guy. And, we really appreciate you coming on. We're a
All
big
good.
fan of the game.
Anytime J.S.